Hello. Do you know anyone who has lived through the Civil War, was born into slavery, lived post World War II, yet still managed to complete a master's degree? I do. This person was one of the founding members of the National Association of Colored Women, the NAACP, women's suffrage movement, along with much more. She was the matriarch for African Americans living in America. Say her name, Mary Church Terrell. Throughout history, she was at the forefront of racial uplift, anti lynching campaigns, civil rights movements, and boycotts. Her belief was that if one wins, the entire race wins. I will first be talking about her history, then her positive impacts, and then the challenges she faced during her lifetime. With that being said, let's get into the good stuff. She was one of the first African American women to attend and graduate college, whose motives for activism were ignited when her close friend, Thomas Moss, became a victim of lynching. This influenced for her to fight for what's right and join alongside other matriarchs such as Ida B. Wells in multiple anti lynching campaigns. Her most recognizable speech is The Progress of Colored Women, which she gave while addressing the National American Women's Suffrage Association in Washington, D.C. She stated, "If the women of the dominant race, with all centuries of education, culture, and refinement in back of them, with all of the wealth of opportunity ever present with them, feel the need of a mother's congress that they may be enlightened upon the best methods of rearing their children and conducting their homes, how much more do our women, from whose shackles have but yesterday been stricken, need information on the same vital subjects, ultimately demanding that the black woman suffrage has earned the same right to be heard alongside the white women's suffrage." Now that I have talked about some of her foundational moments, let's talk about her positive impact. Many know this as the 19th Amendment, and we know this as the right to vote. Leading up to this passing of this law, she marched in the 1913 Women's Suffrage Parade, and according to an article by Jesse Kratz called The 19th Amendment at 100, Mary picketed at the White House with her daughter and members of the National Women's Party, advocating for the inclusion of all black voters within this constitutional law. Her civil fight, of course, against desegregation finally succeeded the day she won the lawsuit against a once famous yet racist diner called Thompson's. The confrontation occurred February 28, 1950, where her and her colleagues faced discriminatory practices, all while attempting to just have lunch. The case is called the District of Columbia versus John R. Thompson, ending segregation in diners in 1953, which ultimately was the parallel for anti-segregational laws in education that passed just a year later. Now, with her accomplishments, we must acknowledge the hardship she faced as not only a woman, but a woman of color. A common misconception is that all activists support each other, especially during big events like the civil rights movements. However, due to her fight for both civil rights and women's rights, she often faced resistance from men and black leadership, specifically influential people such as Booker T. Washington. He believed that education was not the way to show progress and that women's rights were secondary to the fight for civil rights. While working together cohesively in many areas, Mary often criticized him for his lack of acknowledgement towards intersecting issues. And last but not least, of course, segregation. As a woman of color of higher socioeconomic standing, she faced discriminatory practices daily due to the color of her skin. From segregation at diners and an educational institution to political segregation, she faced it all, yet somehow still managed to persevere. As we have grown an understanding of Mary Church Terrell, let's come to the conclusion. She was an activist who fought for our right to vote, fought for our right to take up space in a predominantly white area, all while facing the challenges that come with being a black woman in America. Lack of support and segregation did not stop this woman from empowering and uplifting not only the African American communities, but Latino communities as well. Instead, she used it as fire to fuel her activism. My hope with this video is that others come to find that strength that Mary carried with her to become the matriarch for not only black communities, but for women as well. Because let's be real, given our current political climate, it is now our obligation to fight and uphold for the rights that our ancestors died for. Thank you.